She's over me. She's over me. Wow, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thursday edition of the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and welcome. As we open the doors to the Paranormal Portal and draw you in to our adventure into the worlds of unknown and intrigue and strange phenomena. Tonight we're going to visit the Cryptid Corner. We got a lot of things to get through tonight, some of which you'll be kind of familiar with because we've been doing it for the last several shows. But we got a couple more of the Germer Files. Mr. Wes Germer has given us exclusive access to show his Sasquatch Chronicles shorts on the Paranormal Portal, and I love being able to showcase them. One, because the interviews that he's done through the years on the show are just second to none. I mean, they're just incredible. Some of the most amazing encounter stories coming forward from people from all walks of life, and they're just absolutely incredible, intriguing, and it really makes your head spin with possibility. And so it's been a real pleasure to showcase those here on the show, and it's really a rare honor. I can't tell you how much I've really enjoyed it. And quite honestly, it makes my job pretty easy because, you know, I mean, Wes is doing all the heavy lifting on those. Excuse me. He's done an amazing job putting those together. And as you've seen, I'm sure if you've been paying attention for the last couple of weeks, we've showcased several of them on the show. Last night we did Travis Walton and a couple of others that he's put together. And really, they're fantastic. They're visually exciting and engaging. The stories are amazing. So it's been a lot of fun. And I just think that if you're not familiar with Sasquatch Chronicles, first of all, get familiar with it. And you can check out the shorts as well as his, he has hundreds of interviews that he's done on Sasquatch Chronicles on his YouTube page as well. Of course, you can go to SasquatchChronicles.com. You can become a member and get access to the member shows, which are incredible as well. Just amazing stories. And but you can head over to his YouTube channel and check out several of his archives of the long form and the new shorts, which he's been putting up there. So there's a lot of things to check out, and he's been an incredible friend to us here on the Paranormal Portal, and it's just an awesome opportunity. So we're going to get into those. We're going to get into some other stuff. So we're doing a Cryptid Corner based on the Germer Files, but I do want to actually do a couple other things as well throughout the course of the show, and we'll get to those. But first and foremost, I should probably announce my co-host, which is the fruit of my loins. He's starting to get used to that one. I'll have to come up with a new one because that one just doesn't have the punch it did before. But I'll get more creative, come up with a new tagline for Sheldon. But of course, I'm speaking of my firstborn son, Mr. Sheldon Thomas. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Hello. Hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to the Portal, ladies and gentlemen, where the only thing normal here is the paranormal.
Wow. Did you just come up with that now?
I did, yeah.
Wow, that was pretty good. I you got a gift for this, kid. I'm telling you, you've got a talent here, and it's maybe something you get from me. I don't know, the ability to move your mouth and make sense.
I just make sounds, and things seem to make sense when it comes out. I don't know.
Put it on your resume that way. See how that works. We'll see what happens.
I might. Just a little fun fact.
So a little fun fact, I can just make sounds, and sometimes they actually make sense. I don't know if that'll maybe get you the job, but you might have a little fun with it. But how's everything going for you?
Oh, it's going great.
Good.
I'm always, whenever I'm on the show, I'm always doing great. Like that's kind of the thing. It's persistent.
Well, you're doing a great job, and you've been a welcome addition to the shows, of course. A lot of times I was doing a lot of solo shows in the past, and that's fine. I mean, I love doing those shows as well, but it's been a lot of fun to have you here for us to, talk and to see you grow into the subject more as well, because I know you're interested, and you've always been interested, but you've been kind of thrust headfirst into the phenomena, and it's been kind of fun to see you just embrace it. So, I'm just
so far so good.
Yeah, so far so good.
Yeah.
Let's see, what was I going to say? Oh, throughout the course of the show, if you do want to call in, of course, you can do that. If you've got something paranormal of your own to share and you'd like to share it with us here on the show, you can do that by calling 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. Before I go any further, though, I'd like to just point out a while back, I think probably a couple of years ago now, Don and I did an episode with Tony Merkel of the Confessionals and Wes Germer from the Sasquatch Chronicles, obviously. And it was kind of a roundtable episode, and it was so much fun. We had a great... I just get these random messages popping up from my other browser. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I have to look into that. But we had a great time on that show, and I honestly kind of just forgotten all about it, but Tony reposted it today, and I was like, oh my God, that's right. That was such an amazing discussion. So I shared it on my Brent Thomas Facebook page, as well as the Paranormal Portal radio page on Facebook. If you haven't heard that episode, definitely check it out. It was just a really fun conversation between the four of us, where we just got into all kinds of different topics and discussions, and it was really a blast. And so if you haven't heard that one, it's posted on our Facebook pages, both Brent Thomas and the Paranormal Portal page. So definitely check it out. It was just, I hope we can do that again, because that was so much fun. It was great to just exchange ideas. Just prior to that, Tony Merkel had called in to our live show, and Don and I talked to him and had a great discussion as well then. So it's just one of those things that there's certain shows that we've done. I mean, I love every show of the Paranormal Portal. I really do. Every time I get done, I'm just like, wow, I love my life. I love doing this. This is just so much fun. But given that, there's some shows that really stand out on top of everything. And sometimes they're interviews. And I'm not talking it always has to be celebrity interviews. Some of the greatest shows I've ever had has been talking to you guys, and hearing from you when you're calling in and hearing your amazing experiences. But you need to get the band back together. Yeah. Rachel says, yeah, that's exactly my comment that I made on Tony's post. I was like, oh my God, I love this show. We got to do this again. And so hopefully we can align that. I know that when we hit the 10,000 episode or 10,000 subscriber mark on YouTube, I want to do something like that. And that might be a great opportunity for us to have Wes and Tony on. Wes said he'd love to come on. I hope Tony can make that happen too, because that would be a blast to have them on and to have other people on as well, throughout the course of a show. It might be a really long show. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But if you haven't checked it out, please check it out. It was just so much fun. And it really was nostalgic to listen to that again and go, oh my God, this is so much fun. So I just wanted to point that out. Again, it's on my Brent Thomas Facebook page, as well as on the Paranormal Portal Radio Facebook page. I guess I can put it over on Paranormal Portal Fans, and I'll put it in the Discord as well later. Yeah. But it's just one of those shows, and I was so proud to listen to it again. I'm like, God, that was amazing. Now, when that happened, Don and I were really pretty new to the podcasting. That's how long ago it was. I guess we were about pretty well into our first season, I think, when this happened. So maybe we started our third season on the podcast. So maybe it was actually over 2 years ago, but it was so cool to have a chance to get together with Wes and Tony. Of course, Wes is the big name. He's the big guy on campus in the podcast world for our genre, and Tony is incredible as well. So having a chance to be on a show with both of those guys was just it was like being on tour with having a band and being on tour with like Van Halen and AC/DC or something.
Wow.
It was just one of those cool experiences. So definitely check it out. Okay, so enough of that. Let's see. What else am I trying to remember, Sheldon? Do you know?
Well, Spirit Stalker 151 says, I still would like for you to read, to say my kid's story, but honestly, when I sent it to you, it was sloppy and might not make sense, so I'm going to make it easier to understand things.
Oh, very cool. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I've been trying to dig through the emails and go backwards. I think I did reply to yours, I think. But yeah, I just still haven't caught up with myself. But anyway, yes, please do. Please, if you can make any edits to it and make it flow better, that's awesome. I'll be thrilled to read it. Honestly, I love your guys' stories. It's one of my true highlights of doing the show is hearing from you guys, hearing your experiences, and being able to share my own with you guys. So, anyway, good Lord, what was I going to say? Oh, I know what I was going to say. So we got a lot to get to tonight. Sorry to keep going on and on about this other stuff, but it's just, it's kind of the body of work that is the portal and something I'm very proud of. And many, many things.
Should be.
Well, thank you. But I hope you're all ready because it's time for bed. Well, that's kind of cool. David Ziesmer says, I'm watching you guys from Minnesota. Well, that's where Sheldon is right now, and that's where I'm from.
Wow.
So Minnesota's in the house representing.
That's right. Home state.
Home state. That's right. And, well, I'm currently in the north of Idaho. But anyway, I was... what do you mean, boo?
Because you're not here. I don't know.
Oh, that's sweet. In a really... crappy way. That was really sweet in a really crappy way. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's get to the business of talking about the paranormal here on the show. And first off, I want to close up an article that I've been working through, and this maybe isn't so much cryptid, but it's still been some great stories, and I want to share them because I love me some good stories. So let's do that first of all. Are you ready, Sheldon?
You should know by now I'm always ready.
All right. This is an article coming from justforspooks.com, and it's an article featuring 26 supernatural experiences that cannot be logically explained. We're on number 23, so there's just 3 to go. That's why I want to kind of polish it up and get it off of my tabs. As you guys can't really see. I guess I could drag them down. You guys can see how many tabs I got cooking here. That's just one of my browsers. I got like 3 more that are just as busy. So anyway, number 23 on this list, astrophysics degree here. I was a student at the time, always a skeptic. I believed there was life out there somewhere, but I always laughed at people who claimed to have seen UFOs. My main thing was telling them in this day and age, you had many ways to record it and you didn't. Well, one night I was babysitting my then 10-year-old brother. I went out for a smoke on the balcony, and I was on the phone talking to a friend, Leslie. I look up and see this giant black triangle in the sky. I mean, it was huge, like a third of the visible sky huge. It was hovering and moving slowly, no sound. Then it took off in a split second. Why didn't I film this? As I was talking on the phone to Leslie, I saw that thing. My jaw, along with the phone, dropped to the floor. I didn't move. I couldn't move. I was completely stunned. Since I discussed this many times on here, there's Usually someone posting photos of military craft. No, it wasn't military, nor was it that small. I've researched it. I've read stories. I've looked at photos, and I'm still not sure what to think. I wasn't drunk or high, and my brother saw it too. I can honestly say this experience changed the way I looked at my studies, the sky, the world, and most importantly, it changed me. And that was Lady of Machinery. Well, that's a great experience, and I love those most of all because I think many people think, well, if you saw it, why didn't you take a picture? There's cameras everywhere. And quite honestly, the paranormal doesn't sit around and pose. You know, it's like most Bigfoot encounters are literally seconds long. Mm-hmm. Now, I know everybody's got a phone in their camera, and I know that there's cameras here and there and everywhere. But when you are just wherever you're doing, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, unless your camera is already shooting photos, you're probably never going to get it up and set up in time to capture the phenomena as it happens. Ghost experiences, much the same. UFO experiences, much the same. Most of these encounters are literally seconds, and then boom, they're done. And the people that experience them, first of all, when you're seeing something that shouldn't be seen, as far as you know, it doesn't exist for many people, and then suddenly it does. So your whole paradigm is rocked. You're sitting there in a state of being stunned, in awe. Your entire world just got rocked. And
yes.
And what are you going to do? Wait, hold on. Let me get my phone out. Let's get it in. Let me frame this picture. You know, if there are photos and they're blurry, it's kind of understandable because these people are working in an incredibly adrenalized state. If they are able to fire off a photo at all, the fact that they didn't zoom in or they didn't focus correctly or whatever is not hard to believe. So it's easy for someone on the outside looking in to go, well, you should have got a photo.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree with you and Android. Android said many people are so amazed by what they're seeing. By the time they think of their camera, it's gone. And that's my experience at Wakuta. That was kind of the same exact instance where I stopped and I was staring at the thing I was scared of when I was looking at it over that, right over that bluff was, oh God, if I look away, is it going to be one of those things where I'm going to be grabbing my phone, it's going to be gone? So I just sat there and stared at it. And a few seconds later, it shot off in the distance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Susie to anyone says, I didn't even blink. She says, I was too stunned to grab phone. Plus I was afraid if I look away, it'll be gone. Yep. Same thing you just said, Sheldon. Skeptical will never believe anyways. You know, you're right. And even if you were able to grab a picture, then you get the whole, oh yeah, this is so photoshopped. This is so fake. I can see the strings. I can see the strings. You know, and that's a whole nother, can of worms and another problem to it. But, these encounters are happening, and just like that, you're confronted with it, boom, and your world is reeling. And I mean, when I saw the UFO, I had no way to record anyway. I was looking through night vision binoculars, and it was just like, my God, there it is. And I was so blown away. I was just like sucking in every detail I could with my eyes, just like, just absorbing the whole experience to the max that I could. Now, I knew I didn't have a way to record it. I knew that the only thing was that I lowered the binoculars. I was expecting to see that, above the tree radiating the same light, but it wasn't there. And then it was like a double whammy. So I'm seeing a saucer. It's above a tree about 100, 150 yards from me. And then I'm looking for it with my naked eyes, and it's not there. So suddenly it's there. It's real. It's happening. And then it's not real, or it's not there because it's hidden. And that whole epiphany hit me. So it was like a double whammy for me. But the only thing I would have wished, and maybe this is an ambitious thought too, because if the night vision binoculars had a record function, would I have had the presence of mind in that state of getting my mind absolutely blown to hit record? There are so many people. There's stories of people having cameras in their hands, seeing Bigfoot, and just staring in awe, and then they're gone, and then they're like, they never even thought about the camera in their hands. It's just that's the way it works. So I just think that it's important to impress that out there, because it's easy for people on the outside to say, well, you had a camera, why didn't you take a picture? Well,
oh God, yeah.
it's like saying, why didn't you take a picture of that car accident that just happened? It's just, it's
that's
over.
a good point. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It happened. I saw it happen, but why didn't you take a picture? Well, because it was over. By the time I even came to realize what I was observing, it was done. So,
Android says many people are just like you said, many people are so amazed by what they're seeing. By the time they think camera, it's gone.
Yeah,
exactly. Mm-hmm. Rachel says there was a sense of unreality when I saw my street ghosts, like vertigo.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, and it is. You're in a state of just. Yeah, I mean, you're trying to reconcile this on an intellectual level, and it's an experience that's literally beyond this world, or beyond at least our understanding of the world. So, yeah, Very cool. So, I just wanted to have that discussion. I ended up getting a pair of night vision binoculars because of what you shared, and mine do record and take pictures. Well done. Ooh. I only wish, that's my one big regret, is that I didn't have the ability to push a record button. Hopefully I would have had the presence of mind to do that, but I didn't have the ability. And so what I saw was so incredible and earth-shattering that if I could have recorded it, my position is it would be the Patterson-Gimlin film of the UFO world. I mean, it really was that amazing, that up close, that personal, and it was just sitting there. There wasn't in any hurry. It wasn't going anywhere. And I looked at it, then tried with my eyes, and it still, it wasn't there, then it was, then it wasn't, then it was. And I was just having this amazing, mind-blowing experience. And then it was wait, they're probably looking at me. And then I got really creeped out, and I was like, okay, this is done. I'm done. I'm going inside now.
Yeah.
Because I don't know who they are. I don't know what the hell they're up to. I didn't want to be probed.
I wonder, with people saying, Susie said, yes, time goes so slow, it's so weird. And I wonder if it's because you're seeing something that shocks you in your mind so much that you get like this shot of adrenaline and everything starts slowing down, just like in life-threatening situations where, as people say, time slows down.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Very amazing. Very true. Good point. All right. All right. So anyway, I want to continue this list, but I just want to take a moment to talk about that, because that story was perfect paraphrasing of that whole phenomenon. Like, why'd you take a picture? Well, it's so much easier to say that, in the whole hindsight's 20/20 kind of thing. All right. Number 24. Sorry about this enormous post. I guess it's going to be big. Ooh, it is big. Oof. This one's going to take a minute. My house is haunted, and my family is aware of this and has acknowledged it for a while. Before they did, though, I was the one with the most experiences with the ghosts in our house. My dad, brother, and sister had almost had no experiences. My mother had one solo, but she didn't admit to it for a long time. All the following experience happened over the 10 years that I've lived here. Prior to the first experience, I would often hear silverware rattling in the kitchen or footsteps late at night. At first, I thought it was my dad, as he often gets up for midnight snacks, and apparently sometimes it was, and sometimes it wasn't. My first experience, my bedroom is directly across the hall from my parents' room. My bed faces the door, so if I sit on my bed, I can see into my parents' room. They have a window directly opposite my door, their door, and one night, I think for the first or second year that we've lived there, I wake up, and I see a very tall male figure standing in their doorway, outlined by the light from the window. I was freaked the hell out, as little kids will do. I hid under the covers for a while. Peeked out. He was still, so I hid again. Eventually, I dozed off, woke up a little later, and he was gone. The next morning, I woke up right away, wondering what the hell had happened. I went through your general debunking stuff. No, we weren't robbed. No, it wasn't my dad standing in the door, etc. Honestly, he wasn't even tall enough to be that figure, but I asked anyways. Scared the hell out of me, and my parents didn't believe me for a long time. Another, I was standing in the kitchen, which is the largest window that looks out into our backyard. It was fairly late at night, and everyone else was getting ready for bed, and I was warming up a hot pack to keep my feet warm, and I happened to look out into the dark. I could see a man wearing a white shirt walking across the backyard. I freaked out, dragged my dad into the kitchen, and ended up checking the backyard thoroughly and found nothing. He also pointed out that our dogs, we had 3 at the time, would have been barking if someone was in our backyard. My parents have the master bedroom, and I like their shower better than the one down the hall, so I shower in there. As you walk out of the bathroom towards the hallway, my bedroom, there's a closet on the left side, same wall as the bathroom. I walked out after a shower in my towel, and I see this tall man in a white shirt leaning out of my parents' closet looking at me. Oh my God, that's so creepy. Out of all the experiences I've had, this is the one that I was most frightened by. I screamed and bolted past him into my bedroom. My parents come to see what I was screaming about. We have centipedes a lot, so they thought I was a centipede, and found me shaking in my towel on my bed. They checked the house, their room, and once again, they found nothing. Sometime after this experience, my mom told me about hers. She woke up early one morning and was laying in bed trying to wake up a little more, and she sees the outline of the chest to the head of a tall man walk past her bedroom. Now, my parents' bedroom window is really high off the ground. I'm 5'6", and I can barely, standing on my tiptoes, peek over the windowsill. So to see that much of someone through her window, they would have to have been insanely tall or floating.
Yeah.
Now the tall man is the ghost that has been actually seen the most. There are 2 others, a woman and a little girl. No one has actually seen the woman aside from a friend of ours who claims to see spirits. The woman seems like she's actually a nice ghost. She'll walk up behind you in the kitchen, dining room, touch your shoulder or back or elbow. Just a gentle little touch. When you turn around expecting someone to be there, there isn't. She'll come up and lean on the back of the computer chair, which is one of the rolling ones that reclines a little, and you feel it lean back, and when you look back, no one was there. Her leaning on the chair has happened to my mom, dad, and myself. After I got my laptop, I put it at the end of the dining room table with my back to the wall, and this means that no one can sneak up on me while I'm Redditing, since I can see the entire room from where I sit, including the entrance to the kitchen from the hallway. For a while after I got my laptop, I would stay up very late just piddling around online. My little brother liked to get up and come see what I was doing quite often, and after a while, I no longer bothered to look up when I saw him come in out of the corner of my eye. One night, I saw him come in, walk to stand slightly behind me, and I felt him put his hand on my shoulder. I could even feel the warmth from his hand. I figured he wanted something, so I took my earbud out and turned. I'm sure you can guess by now that no one was there. As for the little girl, I'm the only one who has seen her, and then only 2 or 3 times. She seems very shy and a little mischievous. As I said, I can see the entrance from the hallway to the kitchen from where I have my laptop, and I've seen her crouched in the hallway watching me twice. Both times, as soon as I make eye contact, she'll run down the hall and vanish. That's so weird. That is so weird. Very wild. I mean, it's really kind of creepy, I gotta admit. Once I saw her crouched on the other side of the screen door to the garage. A few others, my entire family is in my parents' room, and we all heard a chair being moved in the kitchen. We did not have pets or anyone else in the house. The chairs don't roll, and you have to pull them across the floor, and they make a noise we're all familiar with. After this happened, my mom admitted her experience to everyone. This year, my brother was home alone and had a fan set up in the kitchen doorway to blow cold air down the hall since our AC's in the kitchen. And he says he walked out to the kitchen to make a mac and cheese, and the fan had been moved to a point in a different direction. He replaced it, put the noodles on the stove to boil, and went back to his room. Later, he walked out again, and the fan had been moved again. He was pretty freaked out. Apart from the chair thing, he's never really had any experiences with our ghosts. When I was around 15 or 16, I came to the conclusion that our ghosts are benign and not dangerous, so I haven't been scared of them in a while. I still want explanations as to why our house is haunted, what ghosts are, etc., but I guess I'll have to wait for those. That was by Perro Blanco. Perro Blanco. Is that Perro a dog? Is the 2 R's Perro Blanco, like white dog?
God, so Perro is, yes.
Yeah.
Gato is cat. That's how I remembered it, because I always switch them up. I used to switch them up sometimes.
Okay, gotcha. Number 25 out of 26. Me and my friend were hanging out in his basement, and he had like one of those rolling closet things you see in a hotel to move your luggage. And there were 4 empty coat hangers on it, and he actually made a joke about the thing, saying his mom won't throw it out and that the coat hangers haven't been touched in years. Literally 2 minutes later, one of the empty coat hangers did a perfect spin around the thing, as if someone pushed it, trying to get it to do a perfect flip over the rack. We were the only ones home, windows closed, no wind or anything, and he literally ran upstairs to his room and told me scary stuff always happens in his basement, and he keeps trying to convince his parents to move because that basement scares him, and he's 21. Ooh, that was by Zero.
Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes things have attachments. Maybe that little closet thing, or that, I don't know what the hell you call it, clothes caddy or whatever. Maybe it's got an attachment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe. Number 26, the last on the list. My family and I moved into this older rental house, and I absolutely hated it. But we were poor, and in my opinion, doesn't matter. Every night I'd come home from work, and the windows in the room my little sister and I shared would be wide open. It was in the middle of winter, and I couldn't figure out why my family kept opening the windows. After a week of coming home to those windows open, I asked around the house to find out who left the windows open and to get them to stop. But after asking everyone, nobody had ever gone down to the bedroom in the basement where I slept. That night, I had a dream about what I believe to have been the spirit in the house. He looked like the lead singer of Disturbed. He looked like David Germain. That's funny. But a thinner frame and shorter, and he wore all black and had a black trench coat on. In my dream, I asked him if he kept opening the windows, and he told me yes. And when I asked why, he told me it was because he hated me. My little sister said she dreamed about that guy and even saw him in the house. There were times I could feel someone staring at me while I slept. It got to the point where I couldn't sleep. I could hear a man's voice in my head telling me to cut myself or hurt myself. If I was with my boyfriend, it would tell me that it was waiting for me. My dad would try to clean the house, but the thing would follow me everywhere. I was never alone. One night, when I was having some snuggle time with my significant other, I saw its face and I screamed. My significant other didn't see anything all through this time. Even if the street lights were on, the whole entire block would seem black. Everything continued until we moved 6 months later. That was by Cutie Feet.
Wow.
It did not like Cutie Feet at all.
No
It wanted nothing to do with Cutie Feet. That's too bad. I don't know why that happens. What is it about? The spirits just hating some people for some reason. Now, I think it could be the fact that perhaps this girl reminded this spirit, this entity, of someone that hurt him in his life. It's like there's similarities. Maybe there's something that reminds, and so he attaches all that hate and anger onto her. It's hard to know. But everybody, I think, has had that experience where you meet someone and just for some reason you don't like that person. I've had it happen a few times, and I feel really kind of creepy about it because it's like that person hasn't done anything to me. What is it about them I just don't like? And I don't know what it is, but it's just maybe it just goes beyond reasoning. Like there's just some people's energies that don't match our own, and we just know that it's going to not be a good situation. But whatever the case, that stuff happens.
Wanted to run something by you that came from the chat.
Okay.
And it brought up a spider web of interesting thoughts. But Susie asked, can you imagine seeing all spirits? Like if you, even if you could shut it off, maybe, I don't know, but what if you couldn't? And you were diagnosed with schizophrenia, but really there's nothing wrong with you.
Oh man, I've thought about that many times. I've thought, and I've postulated this on the show, that I really firmly believe there are asylums with people in it that are just sensitive. And they were confronted with a bunch of very scientific-minded people, maybe in their family, maybe the doctors, whatever, trying to come to some conclusion about what's going on with this person, and so they default to mental illness. How many asylums are holding people that are very empathic or psychic or sensitive to some measure, and they hear the voices, like they're hearing voices because there's voices talking to them, and it's tragic. Yeah. It's scary because these people are stuck in a system that will never be sympathetic to their actual cause for their problems, and they will probably be medicated. And it's kind of the Einstein thing. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it's going to feel it's stupid its whole life. Well, if a person is it's like the Sixth Sense. That kid was tormented, and because nobody understood, they just thought he was crazy. So
yeah, I
think that those are really truly things. Now, the other thing I will say is that I think, and this is my opinion, but I think we've all seen spirits. I think perhaps when you're walking down a city street, you might pass them, and they might look like everyone else. There's so many cases where spirits appear as perfectly manifest as anyone else you might meet. So true. I always wonder if it's the people that never say hello. Like some people pass, and I'm like, "How you doing?" And they just don't even bother looking at you. It's like,
oh my God, those, yeah.
I mean, it's like either that guy's really a dick or he might be a ghost. Not sure. Yeah. Because I'm always saying hi to people. I don't know. It's just my nature. I engage people. I find that's entertaining. But when you'll pass these people, and they'll make no effort to. I mean, they obviously know you're talking to them, but they don't care. They got their beeline and they stick to it. And I think, what if those are spirits? But
they're probably the good kind because they're trying not to scare you and all that. They're just maybe reliving dicks. What it feels like to be alive. Who knows?
If they were the good kind, they'd smile at least.
You're right.
They're dicks. Like, don't bother me. No, I think that it's a very strong possibility that everybody has seen a spirit. They just didn't know they've seen a spirit. And who's to know? I mean, if you're walking through a crowd in a metropolitan area, how do you know all those people are really there, like in physical form?
You'd have to poke every single one, and then you go to jail.
Then you'll be in trouble.
Yeah. There's really no way to test it in public.
We finally nabbed the poker from Main Street.
The poker.
We got him, the poker. We fingered him. We got him. He's in jail. Yeah, I kind of went through about 3 accents there, but anyway.
Spirit Stalker said, I'm still wondering why we don't really hear about ghosts pre-300 or 400 years. Like the dinos and Egyptians, Indians, etc. Do they have an expiration date? I wonder.
No. We do, actually. There's been investigations done at Pompeii where they've caught images of apparitions still doing their thing. How do you know? I mean, so here's the thing. A lot of our history is our modern world is built right on top of the history. So how do you know when a ghost is from? Maybe if you can actually see them, you might see what they're wearing and try to put it to a period. But how do you know those aren't ancient spirits? There's no way to know, I guess. But,
yeah, I mean, who knows? Some of the dark entities might be, I mean, just throwing it out there. It could be hundreds of thousands of years old. Who knows? You don't know.
Exactly. We just don't know much about them. So they could be the same ghosts that are in your closet. They might just be ancient spirits. We don't know. They might be brand new. It's hard to tell. But the problem is we aren't able to actively communicate with these things. So what is their story? Well, it's anybody's guess. So we might be. I don't know where Ethan is. That's a good question. Perhaps, speaking of poking, where's Ethan? I don't know. He was back. He was back the other night. I saw him come in, hey, and I forgot to say hi to him. I was busy launching the show, but he did come in and say hi. But hope he's doing good, wherever you are, Ethan. But, ladies and gentlemen, it's time. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Always.
For the Germer Files?
Yes.
You hiss it.
It fits the paranormal theme.
Okay. All right, folks. So let's get to the Germer Files here, and we'll listen to these amazingly epic episodes, and hope you enjoy them. Here we go.
Yeah, it was in northern Minnesota. I had been up there a couple of years already and hadn't really acclimated to what the winters were like. I grew up in the East Coast and in kind of a very moderate climate. So Minnesota winters they took a toll on you. And I, working outside all the time, was also rough. So in the weekends, Saturday and Sundays, I took up ice fishing. It was like the only thing you could do outside. And I actually found I really enjoyed it. And I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of equipment. I had a little tent and a hand auger and a sled. And instead of trying to go out to the big lakes, I would go on Google Earth and I would try to find these little remote ponds, usually ones that look like they had access to larger bodies of water, but that were inaccessible to boat or whatever because of swamps or marshland. And I would trudge out there with my little setup and drill a hole. And sometimes I would sit there all day in the cold and get nothing. And sometimes I'd pull up these huge fish. It was new to me, and it became really exciting. It was like finding these little pockets. And yeah, I loved it. And this particular day when I had my only encounter, actually, and the first time I even really was aware that there was such a thing as a Sasquatch, I had found this lake kind of right on the edge of this marsh. There's a lot of marsh in northern Minnesota, a lot of peat bogs and marsh, and I found this little lake right on the edge where I knew no one could get to outside of the winter when everything was frozen over. And I was really excited about it. It was way off the beaten track. I had to kind of drive down a dirt road and then hike through the woods. And this particular day, it was a Saturday. It was really warm for February. Usually it was in the single digits, but it was almost 50 degrees that day. And so I was sweating by the time I got out to this lake. So I took off my coat and my hat, and I was in a T-shirt. And I drilled a hole through the ice. And, I mean, it's just pristine. I mean, just wilderness. There's nothing as far as you can see. Out to the west, at the edge of the lake, there were these reeds that kind of surrounded the whole lake. They're 6-7 feet high. And then beyond that, it was just marshland. So I sit down, put my fishing gear in, and just kind of hanging out. And it's probably, it wasn't that long. It was 20, 30 minutes sitting there. I look over to the other side of the lake, and I noticed it was the craziest thing. It was like this head and shoulders kind of lifted up above the reeds. It reminded me what it would look like if, like, you did a puppet show and you stuck a puppet up above a curtain. It just kind of rose up like that slowly and just stood there. It was just a head and shoulders. At the time, I remember thinking that someone must be standing on a snowmobile behind the reeds in this huge winter suit. And it was really, the figure was incredibly dark, almost black. And it was a head and then these big shoulders. There was no neck and you could see part of the chest too. And so the only thing that I could reasonably, and it wasn't like a scary experience. There was no noises. It was dead quiet. My brain's going, there must be a guy on a snowmobile standing up to get up above the reeds in this huge winter black suit. And it didn't make any sense to me because of how warm it was. And also didn't make sense to me because there was no snowmobile tracks anywhere or trails. And it's dead quiet for, the whole time walking in. And so I'm kind of looking at it, trying to kind of make sense of it. And it just shrinks back down. The head and shoulders go back down. It disappears. And it's like, okay, that was just strange and weird. A few minutes later, two of them pop up, the same one as before, and another one about the same size, maybe a little bit smaller. And they both sit up and they just watched me. And I at that point, I'm thinking there's got to be some weird, maybe like there's a drug deal going on in the middle of nowhere, and these crazy hooded snowmobilers are having a party back behind the reeds. I mean, my brain was kind of doing that scramble, trying to process what I was looking at and trying to make sense of it based on what I was familiar with in that area. And they watched me for a while. They totally silent, not moving, just watching me fish. And I remember thinking that I should probably be scared, but it was so weird and it was so quiet and it was such a bright, sunny middle of the day. Just, it didn't feel scary at all. It just felt just kind of a little bit surreal. And after about, I don't know, 20 minutes almost of them just quietly sitting there, and I would glance up at them. I would pretend I didn't see them, then look up again. And they both went down behind the reeds, and that was it. And I hadn't got any bites or anything at that point. So I kind of packed it up right after that. And I'm trying to figure out, I remember thinking, I'm going to find out where that snowmobile trail is that they got in to the back of that marsh. And so I walked to the edge of the pond I was at, and I remember it was a lot farther to the reeds than I had thought. Like, I was using what I saw as a reference point, and I guess the size really threw me, because trying to visualize them as two humans, I thought they could only be about 50 yards away. And I remember walking over, it was a lot farther than 50 yards, and the reeds were a lot taller than what I imagined them to be. I remember I could put my hand up and kind of touch the top of them, and I'm almost 6 feet. So I'm like, oh my God, these, and I didn't go into the reeds. I got up to the reeds, realized there was no sounds of a snowmobile, that was definitely not two people standing up on a snowmobile. And so I kind of jogged back to my gear and put it all up and, went through the woods in my truck. And it wasn't until that evening when I met up with a buddy of mine at a restaurant. We were having a beer, and I told him, like, man, I had the craziest thing happen to me out ice fishing today. And I told him what I'd seen, and his eyes got really big, and he was like, oh my God, you saw a Bigfoot. I was like, what do you mean? What the heck's because I had nobody up there mentioned Bigfoot. And yeah, he started just giving me his little download on what he knew about it, which wasn't much. I went home that night, got on the computer, and I just, you just start Googling and stories, Minnesota, Bigfoot, whatever. And it was just crazy. It was like this door opens up, and there was all these stories from the reservation and from the police and from local citizens. And I was like, how does all of this exist? And I've never heard about this. And so then obviously going back over it in my mind, I'm like, those things were huge. They had to have been, 8 or 9 feet tall to get their entire shoulders and head up above those reeds. And they were so quiet. It wasn't even like, you hear a lot of stories of the crashing, but these things, they must have been sitting there at the edge of the lake when I pulled in, and they just wanted to check me out, see what the heck I was doing out there. So.
Wow. That's pretty epic.
No kidding.
That's just the cool part about it, though. These stories are so amazing because, if you ever want to really get a barometer for the Bigfoot Sasquatch phenomena, listening to Wes's show is a great way to do it, because, this is what he does. And people really do come out of the woodwork to share these stories with him. And I'm sure he gets so many more requests that he could ever put on the shows. But it gives you such an amazing cross-section of America and other countries. He's had other countries, people from other countries on there talking about their experiences as well. But it just shows you that, these things are just happening everywhere. Growing up, I never understood what a widespread phenomena the Bigfoot phenomena is. I just knew it was something in the Pacific Northwest because that's what I heard on Leonard Nimoy's In Search of, and there wasn't an internet back then, obviously. You couldn't just go and check out what information was out there. All you had was local public libraries and whatever few books they would happen to have. And, I'm from a small town, so our local public library was very limited. There was like a little book section, not much more than 3 or 4 feet long, for paranormal books. And
wow,
that was it. And they were very ghosts, hauntings. It was just very generalized. So I didn't have any concept of this stuff, how widespread it was, and much less the world. I really thought when I was young that Bigfoot was something in the Pacific Northwest, and that's it. And of course, the whole idea that you hear there's a Bigfoot there. Well, there's one keeps showing up all over the place over there, but he's pretty busy. But then you realize, no, there's lots of them. And they're not just in the Pacific Northwest, they're everywhere. And it just occurs to me that this is the most successful being in all of the world. This is the most successful being in all of the world because there's no place on the earth, with the exception of just a few places, that they are not reported. They're in Australia, they're in China, they're in the Himalayas, they're in Russia, they're in UK, they're in Europe, they're everywhere. Africa has
Indonesia.
A version. South America, and there's just a version of these things everywhere. And so what that tells you, and they're sighted in mountains, they're sighted in swamps, they're sighted in deserts, they're sighted in all of the most harsh terrains that we know of. And they're not just surviving, they're thriving. And so this is by far the most versatile creature, in my opinion, ever to walk on the face of the earth. And people say, well, people are very versatile too. No, we're good at creating our own comfort wherever we go. So we manipulate our environment to create the comfort that we thrive in. We build walls, we have heaters, we have air conditioners, we have humidifiers, dehumidifiers, whatever. So we can create our comfort anywhere on the face of the earth, but these things exist and thrive in all of these amazingly difficult situations. I just think it's incredible.
Oh yeah, they're more superior than we are as far as versatility.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but northern Minnesota, southern Minnesota, all through the Midwest, all into the East Coast, Florida, Louisiana, everything in between, Mississippi, Texas, Arizona, the Mogollon Ridge is famous for their Mogollon monsters. I mean, there's just everything. Everywhere you go, there's some form of Bigfoot. So then they got 100 or more different names for them, including not just native First Nations names, but there's the grass man, the wild man, the boogers, wood boogers, skunk ape. There's the Momo, that may very well be a form of Bigfoot. There's Sasquatch Bigfoot. There's and everything in between. And the Mogollon monster, as I mentioned before, there's all these regional names for these things that are just everywhere. So I find it incredible.
I'm sorry. I just had a question for you that just came to me. I was curious of. Of all the stories that you read about Sasquatch, Bigfoot, etc., has there ever been a story where someone on purpose or accidentally shot one while hunting, and maybe there was a body, I don't know, and that it disappeared somehow? Maybe has there ever been a story where anyone successfully hunted it at all?
Sure, there's a few stories out there like that. There's several. I don't know how much authenticity are. There's a guy named Rick Dyer who's claims he shot a mother Sasquatch and one of the babies and killed it. And he apparently stashed the body because I don't know. It was like during in the telling of his story, he just kind of went nuts. That's a monster. It shouldn't be here. Let's shoot it. But, and it's a horrifying tale anyway. And I honestly, full disclosure, I'm not really a big fan of his story. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me because apparently when he came out about it, some group got in touch with him and said, we've got to take us where this body is. Where'd you stash it? So he took these people up into the mountains and found there was no body there, but there was like a piece of tissue there. And so they grabbed it, and apparently it tested out as bear, that there was a piece of fatty bear hide there instead of what should have been a little Bigfoot. And I'm not trying to cast judgments. I'm just telling you, my gut feeling is I don't buy it, because the thing is, I do think it's very possible people have shot and potentially killed these things. I've heard many stories through the years, Hunter, had the bead on it and shot it and it dropped. There's what is it? Some ranch. There's a ranch. Is it not the Siege at Lockett Ranch, but it's I guess the Siege at Honobia. I think the Honobia is down by the big thicket in Texas, and there was a family that was just besieged by these things, and apparently they got out guns and dropped one of them, and then the bodies are apparently allegedly drug away by the rest of the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, or whatever. So they don't leave their dead lay around. They apparently recover the bodies and take care of them. And that one could be legit. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. It's just that the thing with these things is that everything that we understand about them or that we hear about them is they're fast, scary fast, too fast for even to conceptualize. They are graceful. They are stealthy. They're like the true ninjas. So it's hard to believe that they'd just be lumbering along and somebody would just draw a bead on one and go boom. Now there's been plenty of other people who said I had it in my sights, and it was 100 yards down range, and I was in my blind, had it in my sight, and it turned and looked right at me, and it knew the person was there as soon as it had him in the sights. Wow. And there's many people that say I had it in my sights, but it looked like a human. I couldn't pull the trigger. And, if you think about it, hunters are trained from a very early age to not shoot people. I mean, you shoot, you make sure you have a positive identification. What do you have? If it looks like a person, don't pull the trigger. Obviously, if they didn't, then there'd be dead hunters all over the place. Because, it happens that people do make accidents, but people are just conditioned not to shoot other people. And these things apparently, I haven't seen one myself. I do believe I've been in close proximity to one, but I never saw it. And but what people relate is that they're so human-like. And so I suppose you've got to get to a whole different place. It's not like shooting a rabbit. A rabbit doesn't look like a human. It looks like it looks like a rabbit, and they have meat in them, and apparently they're delicious. It's not a deer. Deer don't look like people either, but they're delicious. So when it looks like a person, it's a whole different, psychological leap for a hunter to pull that trigger. And so, yeah, I mean, there's stories. Are they true or not? I couldn't begin to guess. I suspect that there's got to be some of them that are legitimate, that somebody somewhere has probably killed them. There's stories of the potentially government groups moving in and taking the bodies. There's stories of them being recovered by their quote unquote clans and brought away. But there's never a body. There's never the only body that I believe might be legitimate is potentially the Minnesota Iceman, which was apparently a juvenile, what people believe to be Sasquatch that was allegedly either shot by a rancher in Minnesota or is from overseas. There's so many different versions, but people that saw the Minnesota Iceman at the state fair and stuff, and at the fair circuits, they said there's no way that was fake. They could see the hairs, the individual hairs, and this is in the 60s, coming out of different places on the body, and there was a fake one made, and people claim that the real one, I don't know, maybe got destroyed or maybe got hidden away or whatever, and then they put a fake one, a rubberized one in ice, and that one wasn't nearly convincing enough. So anyway, I'm spiderwebbing into 500 different directions here. But yes, long story short, yes, there are claims. People have shot them. I don't know what to think of those. I mean, I imagine some of them are legit. But
have anyone found any bones?
Not that I'm aware of, and that's kind of the big thing. That's the big thing. So, most of the evidence right now is visual. There's the footprints with that, even footprint castings that show dermal ridges, which is really amazingly hard to believe that was faked. So, I mean, having a dermal pattern on a big oversized foot doesn't seem probable that somebody whittled that out of wood too. So there's that. There's hair samples. There's apparently blood samples that have been collected. There's tissue samples that have been collected and allegedly tested for genome. some people have problems with the testing, but it was done by a Melba Ketchum, who is has her own lab, and she apparently collected a lot of these different samples from all over, did blind tests, and sent them out to other labs for blind tests. And apparently the return information is that the genetics say it was a human mother way back in antiquity, but an unknown father. So that might be the dawn of the species. Again, take it or leave it. There's a lot to unpack in that whole discussion too, but it could be. I mean, I don't pretend to know. But anyway, we got another one of Wes's files to go through here, so let's get into that now.
All right.
Let's get into it. And here we go.
So it was the fall of 1996. And at the time, I grew up in Bend, Oregon. And a buddy of mine and we went bow hunting out near John Day. We set up a good camp and had everything dialed. And we were going to bow hunt mule deer. And I was the only one that had a tag. So my buddy was just kind of along for the ride. He actually grew up in John Day and knew the area well and knew, a lot of people in the area. So to get into this encounter, we'd been hunting for a day or two, I think. One evening, my friend's cousin came up from town with his girlfriend and a friend of his and that guy's girlfriend too. So that's why I'm not sure who this other person is that you referenced, because it could have been one of those gals. This was 25 years ago, so I don't really remember everybody's name. I know my buddy's cousin's name, but anyway, they came up to camp and we made a nice dinner and we were all sitting around the fire telling stories and stuff. And about 10 o'clock, they left and drove back into John Day. And my friend and I were just, wrapping up camp, doing dishes, getting ready for bed. We had my dog with me. She was a Brittany, a really smart dog, tuned into the woods for sure. Kind of a pain in the butt, kind of one of those dogs. She was a bird hunter, but you'd take her out and she'd always get into something, man. She'd been attacked by all sorts of wild animals and you just never knew with her. Sometimes she'd be gone for 36 hours and then she'd stumble back into camp or whatever, or back on the river. And anyway, so we were getting ready to climb in the tent and we heard this sound that came from across the logging road up on the ridge to our north, probably only a half a mile away at most. And it was just this terrifying, scream, howl, change octaves. It went on for a long time. And the two of us just stared at each other and my dog was, cowering in the tent, which she never did. And, it wasn't a cougar. It wasn't a screech owl. It wasn't any of that stuff. I know what all those animals sound like. I spent a lot of time in the woods and so has my friend, of course, being a logger and a hunter. And, it was an inexplainable sound. And, so my friend and I, we got our we were bow hunting, but, we had some shotguns for grouse and stuff. And so we got our shotguns and we, put them in the tent and, we pretty much stayed up till, I don't know, 3 or 4 in the morning. Maybe we nodded off. We stayed there, and finished off our hunt. I believe I killed a deer and that was that for that experience there. I don't know. It's funny how, two guys can get to chewing the fat on the road for a couple days and you can kind of rule it all out, right? Like, oh man, it probably wasn't that. It was probably, who knows what it was. Maybe it was somebody playing a prank on us out in the middle of nowhere. I don't know, but I don't know. I guess we had kind of over the course of a couple days convinced ourselves that we didn't need to be scared and we could just kind of do our thing. So that's what we did. the following spring, the girl that I was dating at the time, and this was in my early 20s. I think I was 21. I'm 45 now. So she came with us, and it was my same friend Joe and her and I, and we just went out there to go, kind of scratch the cabin fever off. And it was a nice, like, April or May weekend in Central Oregon. So we were going to go camp and go poke around in the woods for a couple days. It's funny because the same guy and my buddy's cousin from John Day and his girlfriend came up again for dinner one night, maybe the second or third night in camp or something. And just kind of like the same story all over again. They, stayed, had dinner. My girlfriend actually was asleep. She slept through everything. She was tired and had been, in the tent sleeping since probably 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So the rest of us were up and having dinner and chatting around the campfire. And then those guys took off and headed back into John Day. And my girlfriend got up to help me do the dishes and clean up camp and everything. And my friend went and walked outside of camp to go relieve himself. And we heard him empty his handgun. He had a 22 revolver, and he fanned it. Like, it was, you've fanned a revolver before, and like, bam, 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 bam. I'm like, whoa, why is Joe fanning his revolver? So he comes back into camp. He's like, hey, this big animal just jumped out of the creek bed, and it's running across the road right now. And my girlfriend, who grew up on the coast, and when she was a little girl, she had a kind of a weird experience in the woods herself. But anyway, she ran out to the road, and I grabbed, I had a really bright, light in my truck, like a, little spotlight thing that we always used for finding camp spots and, getting people back out of the woods. Oftentimes we'd shoot an elk or whatever late in the afternoon and be in some dark canyon. And this is before GPSs and stuff, kind of. So, you'd go find people and get them back to camp sometimes just based on the power of a spotlight. So I grab the spotlight and plug it in, and we get the animal in the light, and I mean, that's bright as day. It had just cleared the road when I got it, and it ran up on the hillside, and it was just paralleling our camp, just running so fast across this hillside. This, sparsely, I don't know, I mean, I'd call it sparsely timbered, had been thinned out a little bit. And it was just moving so quickly, and it rarely took its eyes off of us, which really crazy to be able to move that fast through the woods and not even watch where you're going.
Yeah.
But that's what it did. And it was unbelievable how quick that thing moved through the woods. When I first got it in the spotlight, and I should tell you that my girlfriend came back into camp and said that it was whistling at her. So then she's with me, and and then Joe's there. We're all watching it run across the hillside. I guess it looked like a Olympic athlete in all, I don't know, a dark suit, all black spandex or something. Its eyes were reflective, but they looked just like the reflective eyes of an elk or a deer or a rabbit or something. They weren't red or, any other color, really. They were just reflective. And yeah, it moved so fast and with such agility, and was, I've been up on that hillside. We went up there the next morning, and I'd walked that hillside before, but just went to go kind of follow the path that it took. Oh, there's stumps and rocks and all sorts of shit in there. Excuse my French, but like how an animal could move that fast in that kind of terrain and not even really ever take its eyes off of us. It's just mind blowing. I don't know, man. It was unbelievable the way the thing moved. My buddy, when he said it jumped out of the creek bed, I can't say that it He said it was upright, right? It was right in front of him, very close. But yeah, he said it was on two legs right out of the gate, and it was always on two legs when we saw it. In the morning, we found a single track right where Joe had encountered it in the creek bed. I laid down my Leatherman tool. It was 10 inches long and 6 inches wide, and it was just the front part of the foot. So it had jumped up this embankment, but it was, embedded in the clay soil about a quarter inch or so. And I weigh over 200, and I was jumping up and down with my heel, and I couldn't even make an indentation in that soil, in the substrate. So no, nothing else happened on that trip. However, the following fall, we went back to the same camp, my friend Joe and I, and three of our buddies joined us. So there's 5 of us in camp. Opening day, it was super hot that year. Opening day of archery, I shot a buck, and it was, mid 90s. So we got it back to camp as quickly as we could. And I just started butchering it right away so I could get all the meat on ice and in the cooler. And so I cut it all up, and then I took the carcass. And that year, the meat bees, the yellow jackets, were unbelievable, unreal how many there were. I've never seen anything like it. So the yellow jackets were swarming me while I'm cutting it. I don't know how many times I got stung, a lot. So I took the carcass across the creek and I hung it up in this little grove of trees. And I roped it up, and I slung it probably, it was out of my reach. So, I don't know, 9 feet off the ground. And we went back that evening. We, had some dinner, and we were kicking around, and same kind of time of night, like right after 10 o'clock, right when we're kind of winding down, we hear this animal walk. We hear these footfalls coming down the hill across from us, other side. So this is not across the logging road that's to our north, but it's in the timber that's to the south of us. And that timbered face goes all the way for miles and miles and miles back there into the Murderers Creek unit. We hear these footfalls. We hear this animal in the grove. He finds the carcass, and we're all sitting there listening to it. It's making some odd sounds, grunts and snorts, and like, oh God. And so, our friends, a few of our close friends we had shared our experience with. And, I don't know, how it is. Like, people aren't going to believe you till they actually see something, or at any rate. So our friends are all just sitting there like, oh my God, is this really happening? Like, there's actually a freaking Sasquatch in our camp right now. Like, this is insane. Are these guys, I don't know. They were just like, whoa. And so we unloaded some guns in the air, and it wasn't easy to scare it off. It didn't run away like, after the first salvo. It took several rounds for it to run off, and we could hear it run off. And so then we all went over, we crossed the creek, single file, shotguns, flashlights in hand, and went over there, and the carcass was on the ground. So we hung it up higher up the tree, like higher up between the grove of trees. So it was, 11 or 12 feet off the ground probably. And we went back to camp, and not 5 minutes later, that thing ran back down there, and it got it out of the tree again. And we scared it off a second time. And we went back over there, and then we hung it as high as we possibly could. And we went back to camp, and it came down, and it got it again. And that time we just sat there and listened to it. And it just did its thing. And I don't know how long we listened to it, a while. And then it took off. It just walked off. And then the next, one of our buddies got in his truck and left, and moved to Alaska. And I've not even spoken to him since. He was a good, close friend of ours.
Wow. Amazing.
Wow, indeed.
Indeedy.
It's like a multiple encounter for them.
Yeah, that's incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing, folks. But that's what we try to do here on the show. And special thanks again to Mr. Wes Germer for letting us play those on the show. I just
Yeah.
love it. I mean, they're just so fascinating to listen to, and even the discussions in the chat are always like, on topic. It's really cool. So, but I think we're about done with the show.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's 10:20.
Yeah, well, 8:20 here, but yeah.
Well, for me.
I hope you guys have enjoyed this. We did a little overtime with you, but I hope you had a good time anyway. It would be fantastic to see you guys share these videos. Put them on your social media. It goes a long way to introduce a lot of people to the shows. I know it's a lot to ask, but we just definitely want to keep this growing and find more people that are into the paranormal that might enjoy the shows too. So the best way you can do that to help promote the show is to share them. So please feel free to do that. You have my blessings and my encouragement. And other than that, I don't know. Sheldon, what do you got?
Well, if you guys want to stay more connected to us and the community, you can join our Discord, where we post lots of fascinating things, like things that we find interesting online. Like there's a UFO video I stumbled on earlier today that's really interesting, of a pilot's audio recording of a UFO encounter, it sounds like. So if you want to check it out, you'll find it there.
Absolutely. So check out the Discord if you would. Of course, check out the podcast. You can certainly follow that, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening from, like iTunes or iHearts, whatever platform you're on. Hopefully, you will enjoy the podcast as well. But that's all we got for you tonight, folks. So just remember, we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. And I hope you have a wonderful day tomorrow. Sheldon's making a big heart.
I'm doing it really badly, but I'm trying.
You are. It's like that. Yeah. Love you too. From us to you. Big hearts.
Yes.
All right. So anyway, I'll be back tomorrow night. I think Don will be here tomorrow night, and we'll do the 2-hour show. But if not, then Sheldon will be here. One of you two will.
That's one of us will, yeah.
All right. But I'll be here either way. So I hope you guys will come in and check it out. Again, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here on YouTube is the live shows on Wednesday through Sunday. So hopefully you'll check them out. But anyway, that's it for us. Good night, everybody. Take care. Have a wonderful Friday. And we'll see you soon.